they simply say what needs to be done or do it. I guess President Trump sort of probably maybe the last hope, sort of holding the dam back from bursting. Maybe if he gets
Not
reelected.
really. I mean, Trump, a lot of people, look, Trump is a politician like anybody else. I mean, he is making political decisions. Nothing Trump does is really for the good of the country. It's all politics. He wants to get reelected and he's playing ball. I mean, he's not draining the swamp. He's, part of the swamp. I mean, the swamp is a lot deeper now that Trump is there. I mean, I think Trump has a different style than a lot of career politicians, but the substance is all the same. All the decisions are politically motivated. They're not economically motivated. But to
You
answer
don't
your
think that
question,
he puts America first, though? All of his anti-globalist legislation
no,
stopping.
that's just talk. That's just campaigning. He's not putting America first. He's putting his reelection first. That's what he's putting first. It's now I agree that he wants things to look better while he's president because he thinks it reflects better. He doesn't want to have to go through a big cleansing of the economy on his watch and get blamed for it. And of course, he was claiming that we had the greatest economy in the history of the world when that wasn't even close to the case. I mean, maybe we had the biggest bubble in the history of the world, but we didn't have anywhere near the strongest economy.
Well, but unemployment was at an all-time low for 50
No, it wasn't.
years.
Look, it was at a low based on the way we measure it now. I mean, it's been a lot lower in decades in the past when we had a more honest way of measuring unemployment. In fact, when Trump was a candidate for president, he called out the phony unemployment numbers that the Obama administration was touting. When Obama was saying the unemployment rate is 5%, Trump said the real rate is 30% or 40%. So all of a sudden he's president and now unemployment's 4%, and that's the real rate? What happened to the 20% or the 30%, from, before he was elected? I mean, so these numbers mean nothing. The reality is the American economy is a shadow of what it used to be. It's hollowed out. I mean, a lot of the criticisms that Trump had were valid, except the minute he was elected, he became a champion of everything he criticized. The trade deficits got bigger under Trump. They didn't go down, right? One of his big things was we got to shrink the trade deficit. It got larger, not smaller. The budget deficits got bigger. He said, "Oh, we have too much debt." Well, now we have much more. He was critical of the Federal Reserve because their monetary policy was too easy. As soon as he became president, he began criticizing them because he said they were too tight. Right? He wanted the Fed to be political, the way they were for Obama.
So do you think, as an outsider, he comes in, he says what he thinks needs to be done or what really should be done, but then now that he's the captain of the ship, he sort of realizes that the ship is malfunctioning, it's leaking, he can't do what he wanted to do because it's just impossible, and so he's trying to just prevent the ship from sinking the best that he can?
Well, it's going to sink no matter what. He's just hoping that he gets off before it does, right? That's what all politicians do. But so the problem is when Trump campaigned, he never actually talked about what needed to be done. He was accurate in his assessment about the problems. And because he was speaking candidly about how bad the problems were, that resonated with a lot of voters who had been spoon-fed lies about how great things were, right? The media, the Obama administration, Wall Street was talking about this great recovery, right? But the average guy wasn't experiencing that recovery because it didn't exist on Main Street. Maybe it existed on Wall Street thanks to the Fed, but a lot of the resources that were propping up Wall Street were siphoned off of Main Street by that monetary policy. So when Trump laid it out cold about how bad the U.S. economy was and how we had disintegrated over the years, and that America was no longer the great nation that it used to be, that was a true statement. And Trump just said, "Look, elect me, and I will make America great again. I'm not a career politician. I'm going to do what it takes to make this country great. I'm going to do what the career politicians refuse to do." And so that was a great message. I voted for Trump, right? A lot of people voted for Trump because they liked that message. But Trump never actually said what needed to be done, right? And what needed to be done was massive cuts in government spending. But Trump did not campaign on that. He didn't say, "I'm going to elect me, I'm going to cut Social Security, I'm going to cut Medicare," right? He didn't talk about making government smaller. He talked about cutting taxes, which is the fun part. But in order to cut taxes, you have to cut government spending because taxes fund government spending. And if you cut taxes but keep spending, well, how do you pay for the government? Because the real cost of government is what it spends. So what you really need to do is think of government spending as taxation, because every dollar the government spends, we need to pay for it. And if the government doesn't collect the taxes, then it has to create inflation. And so we're going to pay for the difference with a loss of purchasing power of our money, which is what's happening. So when Trump gets into office and he finds out that the only way to really make America great again is to make government small again, that the reason America was so great in the past was because we had a tiny government that really didn't consume much in the way of resources. So we had a strong economy because we didn't have all these taxes, we didn't have all these regulations. But then he gets to Washington and he realizes that all these special interest groups that want all that government spending, that want all those programs, that want all that regulation, and he's not willing to challenge the status quo, and he doesn't want to disappoint voters by telling them, you can't have this government money. The country can't afford it. So he couldn't actually do anything to make America great again. So all he could do is get the bubble bigger and pretend that that was making America great again. So that's all he did, right? We just continued the policies of Obama under Trump, which was a continuation of the policies of Bush. So all we did is we got the stock market to go up, right? And we created some more fake prosperity. And now Trump became a champion of that fake prosperity. The same fake prosperity that he rightly criticized as a candidate, now he embraced it and said, oh, look, you see how successful I am? Look, we have a new high in the Dow. But as a candidate, he said, who cares about the Dow? It's a bubble. Ignore the stock market. It's not real.
I don't know if I would call unemployment at an all-time low. I know you dispute those numbers, but I mean, just anecdotally, I know tons of people who have been very prosperous over the last few years. We're seeing some manufacturing returning to the country. We're seeing trade deals.
We're not seeing manufacturing.
Cummings, the auto industry is.
No, it's not. The auto industry is a disaster. Yes, we had a bubble in auto loans thanks to the Fed. But GM and Ford, which are the only two American automobile companies left, are going to go bankrupt again. They were bailed out once before, and they're probably going to get bailed out again because they're probably headed for bankruptcy again. But no, manufacturing hasn't returned. That's a myth. We continue to lose manufacturing jobs under Trump. I mean,
but aren't new service jobs? I mean, everybody's using Instacart now, and all of these sort of new. Energy is neither created nor destroyed, right? The scientific axiom. But isn't that true of jobs and all these people like Andrew Yang who are saying that 30% of the jobs are going to disappear? I mean, that's not really true because nobody could have anticipated that companies like Facebook and Twitter would be.
Oh, I am not somebody who believes that prosperity and automation is what's destroying jobs. No, it's government regulations and taxation and spending. Look, even before COVID-19, even before we lost all the jobs that were created since 2008, but even before this recession started, job creation under Trump was slower than it was under Obama, right? And all that happened is the trend that was in motion for falling unemployment under Obama continued under Trump. He didn't bend the curve, and we continued to create the same low-quality, part-time service sector jobs under Trump that we were creating under Obama. That didn't change. The only thing that really changed is that the stock market made a new high. And why did that happen? Because the Fed went back to printing money. They went back to rate cuts and quantitative easing. And they did that in 2019. They did that a year before COVID-19 came around. So the Fed already had to rescue the Trump economy because it was imploding, because it was phony. It was in a bigger bubble than the one that he inherited from Obama. But I guess he realized that he had no choice politically. If all he cared about was getting reelected, then he couldn't do what was necessary to make America great again. So instead, he did what was expedient to keep the bubble inflating, so maybe he can get a second term. But I don't think it's going to work. I mean, I think if Trump really cared about the country, he would have tried to do something in his first year when the Republicans had the House and the Senate. What he should have done is what I suggested. He should have refused to sign an increase in the debt ceiling. And had he done that, he would have forced the government to dramatically cut government spending and brought about a balanced budget in his first year. The president had the ability to do that. There is no way that they would have been able to override his veto. There would have been enough Republicans who would have taken advantage of that to really shrink government spending. But instead, that didn't happen. I mean, we increased government spending dramatically and cut taxes at the same time. So we poured gasoline on fire. That's all we did.
A couple more things I want to get into, and I appreciate your time. And Peter Schiff's the host of his own YouTube channel, and you can check it out over at the Peter Schiff channel. And